From 526 to the Naval Hospital to plastic bags in Charleston County, I speak exclusively with Charleston County Council members Brantley Moody and Honeycutt for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Honeycutt and Brantley Moody, thank you so much for your time here this morning.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Quintin.
Pleasure
Good to be with you.
Well, thank you greatly. Well, let me jump into the obvious, and this is the headline from the Post and Courier on February 20th by Jamie Lovegrove. It says this: SC lawmakers postpone vote on new contract for long-delayed I-526 extension. Let me read a portion of that article really quickly. It says this: the long-stalled completion of I-526 got another delay Wednesday, but project supporters say they are moving ahead. Lawmakers on the committee that approves of all major state projects deferred a vote on a new contract between a state transportation panel and Charleston County to complete the roadway. Instead, they took the rare step of creating a subcommittee to review the county's financing plan. Can I break that down? It says this, and I'll go back to the article. Lawmakers on the committee that approves all major state projects deferred a vote on a new contract between the state transportation panel and Charleston County. What is that new contract as we sit here right now?
It's amazing how in these situations everybody can have the same set of facts, yet take away a completely different story. And the fact of the matter is here we are proceeding, and we just authorized week before last $3 million towards some invoices that are now ready to be paid so that we can keep moving forward. The state will pay its half of those bills, and we're moving forward, so this isn't going to hold us up.
Let's talk about some dates. I think I told you before, my father used to say you're entitled to your own opinions, not your own facts. So in August of 2006, the CIB approved this project. In March of 2008, the Joint Bond Review Commission approved this project and also approved the issuance of $420 million in bonds. Okay, all that had to be done before the IGA could sort of move forward. So I'm not sure exactly what they're meeting about. We are proceeding under those approvals. In 2012, Senator Leatherman on the State Infrastructure Bank Board made the motion to approve an additional $138 to $158 million of additional funding. So our position is maybe our delegation should be meeting about that instead of about a project that's already approved.
Okay, well, what is the biggest difference between, you say, 2006 and right now with that contract?
There is nothing. There's nothing. It's signed and sealed. It's ready to go. It's been approved by the CIB is approved. The JBRC is approved. The JBRC has issued approvals for revenue bonds for $420 million. I don't know what there's left to talk about, to be honest with you.
Okay, why subcommittee then?
Well, I think the issue here is the cost increase. Again, contract didn't change, and then we amended that agreement in January so that we could proceed under the county's plan to fund the difference. Okay. And during the CIB meeting was very interesting if you go back and watch. Senator Leatherman said that he recognizes this project is a priority. His concern is how the county is going to meet its funding obligation. And listen, our books are wide open. Just a week ago, we had our audit approved, and our books can be examined at any time, and our ability to fund this project, we feel very confident in and are willing to share that with the JBRC. So that's what I think the committee is looking into.
Okay. Quintin, I might mention that Charleston County is one of 46 counties nationwide that carries a AAA bond rating. So we have no concern about our ability to fund this thing. Matter of fact, we'd like the state to be more open with how they're going to fund their piece, to be perfectly candid with you.
The $3 million you said on invoices, who are you sending this money to now?
So the contract is between the county and the state, and now the county is actually administering the contract. Okay. So we're going to get invoices in, and then they get submitted up to whoever the payee, so us and DOT, and that's where they get paid.
So we send our $3.1 million. The CIB, or I guess the state will also send their portion of the funds as well.
Okay, $3.1 million now. So when you deduct that, how much would Charleston County have left to pay?
Well, I don't know if the question is quite clear enough, but we don't know what the cost is going to be. Okay, the last estimate was $725 or $750. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like to talk about those. You know, that cost is going to balloon. It could. We don't. What if it's less? That could be kind of cool. But when that estimate was done by the DOT in 2015, that was done using 2019, 2020 dollars. Okay. So we still think that number is valid. So if you subtract the $420 the SIB has to pay. That leaves us with a $305 million balance.
Oh, okay.
I think it's also important to recognize the county has already put up over $115 million.
Okay.
That was its initial obligation. We are deep into this project, and it really shocks me that people talk about the finances of this without recognizing that if we were to walk away from this project, we're talking $150 million. That's on top of what the state spent. So.
Okay. I know you talked earlier about obviously Senator Leverman. He basically says, hey, listen, he's not opposed to the project, but he wants to do more due diligence on funding plans. What's your message to him right now?
We just did 3 or 4 months of due diligence with the SIB. All of our forecast, all of our modeling is a part of the new amended IGA. It's open for anybody to see it. I get a sense that the subcommittee wants to review things that we just do another exercise similar to the one we just went through with the SIB. So
Okay.
why not just look at all the materials we've already provided to the SIB, and that would be my answer.
What are those materials?
It's the forecast, it's the budgets, how we're going to pay for it. It assumes we get no outside money from anybody else. It assumes we get some chats money.
Okay.
We've got all kinds of different models in there showing how we would pay our portion.
How much money would you get from chats?
That number, they have I would say committed, but they have told us they would look very favorably upon a request from Charleston County.
Okay.
So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, now I know I talked with you probably for a couple of Quintin's close-ups earlier about this, but exactly can you describe the IGA right now?
I'm going to let the attorney get that.
Absolutely. So again, it's the original intergovernmental agreement between the State Infrastructure Bank, SEDOT, and Charleston County. The only real differences are now that Charleston County is administering the contract, so we have a lot more ownership and buy-in. There have been some things that folks pointed out. For instance, we're going to pay the legal fees. We expect legal challenges. We hope to bring stakeholders together to minimize that. But in terms of the agreement itself, other than the funding, which had to be the attachments at the back showing the funding plan, and we're approaching it 50-50.
Yes.
So just like the $3 million we had to pay, they had to pay $3 million. So
Okay.
we go 50-50 all the way along over the years that it's been prorated. And then the original terms were reincorporated. So the agreement is not that different.
And what are those stakeholders that you want to bring to the table just in case you guys have any litigation issues?
Absolutely. Well, you've got the environmental community that's
Okay.
concerned about this. You've got certainly residents who are directly impacted. There's a lot of different, as you well know, voices out there who oppose this. And so my attitude is, look, we can work together. The intermodal terminal, which was, very divisive issue, they worked out an agreement on that. And so I fully believe that we can if we will all come to the table with an open mind.
Okay, you say all come to the table, obviously great minds. Let me ask this, the communication. What has the Joint Committee communicated with the State Infrastructure Transportation Bank Board on this?
Well, obviously, we're not involved in their direct
Okay.
communications
Okay.
because we don't have any sort of direct agreement with the JVRC.
Okay.
They're simply the funding source. They approve the issuance of bonds. And again, never withdrawn the funding. There's never been any issue over that. And once it's approved, it's approved. So it would be a huge step for something to be undone there. We do not anticipate that at all. And so what their communications have been is really, we don't know.
Why a problem now? Is it politics or is it that they need more documentation from you all? What is it?
My sense is it's more delays, more
Okay.
delays. I think the thinking has always been that at some point Charleston County will just throw up their arms and say, you know what, we've had enough, the cost has gone up too high, just forget it. That's never going to happen. Not while people like Jenny and I are sitting there. The will of council is very strong. It's now 7-2, which I think reflects the community's support for this project. Jenny just ran a campaign and had huge support on 526. My campaign was in large part centered on that. Anna Johnson was in large part centered on that as well. So the community has spoken about what they'd like to see happen.
And let me go back to this Post and Courier article. This was interesting too that Jamie wrote. He says this, State Transportation Secretary Christy Hall said last week that the preliminary work, which will lead to a final design of a road work and construction, could take about 3 years, that is. What is that preliminary work right now?
First of all, Secretary Hall is fantastic. She has been a very good friend of the county. She's a big supporter of the project. You've got engineering, you've got environmental. I'm not sure if any more properties need to be acquired, right-of-way acquisitions and things like that. So it's just the whole of the process.
And that final design of the road work and construction, have you guys been able to look at that design?
So we're not anywhere near that.
Oh, okay. And let me go over to the governor's side.
I mean, step back. I mean, there's talk of 526, there's talk of parkways and things like that, but until we finish all these other steps, that final design it's still a ways out.
Okay. And I know Governor Masters basically told the folks in Corey, hey, he's confident the latest delay will not have any impacts on 526 being completed. He says the project has been years in the making, and because of unprecedented level of communication coordination, we're closer to completing it ever than before. And this is Brian Sims, the spokesperson for the governor. What has that unprecedented level of communication coordination been thus far about 526?
Well, I'll say that look how fast it's come since the governor said we're doing this road. So he basically got with his appointees to the CIV and said this needs to get done. When the 526 Mount Pleasant broke down, he saw what was happening over there, and that's stuff that our constituents live through every day. And when he saw that, he got on board, and look how fast and far we've come in such a short time.
Okay, let me ask this. Okay, now, how long has this been going on now in your mind?
In my mind, it's been going on since I was a kid. I grew up riding my bicycle on 526, piece that goes over Highway 61. Right. So, showing my age, I guess that's probably the mid to late 70s. So, long enough.
Long enough. What is your estimation now about this particular extension being really funded and finished?
It's going to get done. It's just a matter of if we get it done now at whatever, 750 or whatever the number is, or if it waits 10 years and the number climbs to well over $1 billion, it will be done. I
know earlier you said you all had money left over from, I guess, the half-cent sales tax. How much money was that left over?
So I'll take a shot at it. So the original half-cent sales tax, some of that debt has been refinanced. Okay. Some of that debt, some of those monies were projects that came in under budget. Some of those monies were maybe monies that we got from the state or other sources to offset what was charged to the county. So if you've got $75 to $90 million left over from that original half-cent sales tax, that's the money we're proposing to spend first to go towards this.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm in total agreement.
Okay.
That's where we stand.
I know something that all people are really trying to stand on is this issue about the Naval Hospital. And obviously we heard the news what's going to happen with that. How did we get here with that?
Well, I want to make sure that what's been out there is clear. Before I was elected to office, this was one of those issues that I needed to educate myself on. And so I went to various, community groups, stakeholders, and said, hey, tell me where we are and what we are planning to do. But that was before I actually went in and discussed the county plan, which I wasn't privy to talk to people and tell them to tell me at that point yet. And so I got some background, and I understood, the concept of the BRT coming through that area, what it means, what is a transit-oriented development, what does that mean for this community, how is that going to transform this community, and at the same time, if that's the case, then how do we preserve the community there? So there were a lot of questions that were kind of floating around in my mind, and after I was elected, Mr. Smalls and Mr. Poplowski took me on a tour of the hospital, which, in my view, appears to have great bones to it, but is a tremendous piece of real estate. I mean, over 400,000 square feet. The only type of facilities that have been successful in fully operating a facility of that size have been hospitals. And so when, it has its history and we are where we are, but when the county was confronted with how do we try to renovate this space and use it, the question became, are we going to be able to do that? And at the time, in December, council actually voted to look at a different option, which is tear the building down and build a community services facility. Certainly, they developed a plan for that. There started to be some concern raised. The city of North Charleston is developing its comprehensive plan in conjunction with the BRT and its flow through this area. And so parties started to start getting concerned that the county was making the best decision. And so I, and again, out of conversations I'd had with some of these other folks like ULI and Coastal Conservation League, brought to council the idea of doing this study. Now this study, it's important to understand, is 5 days. We're not talking about, a 3-year study again, because we've had a lot of studies. Lancey's done a study, the COG itself is doing studies of this area. This is going to look at a very isolated area, but the footprint and how we involve the community around this area is critical. And this really is our last chance to get it right. And we are at the precipice of something incredible for our community because we've never had a transit project like we have coming with the BRT. And so it's very important that we're all on the same page, that we're working together, and that we hear from this community so that they get what they need and they want, and that they aren't left behind, and that we don't end up with another issue of what we've had in the past where we use these opportunity zones and those very people get displaced from their community. So that's a huge priority in understanding and making sure we hear from those stakeholders in this process.
What does the community need and want right now?
Well, Mr. Darby might be the better person to ask for that, but let me add on what she said. My first vote on that issue was I guess a couple years ago, and it was you're going to lose a lawsuit badly, re-enter a lease with people you do not trust, or make them an offer. Two really lousy choices to make. Jenny really wrapped it up pretty well. I would include, and she and I have talked about this, our need for social services. That was the original intention or intent of the property. So our DHEC has expressed an interest in coming in their disabilities, our DEOTIS or drug alcohol treatment facility. We've got to do something with those organizations and get them consolidated. So where we put them on that facility, I'm open to it. But everything she just said, I completely agree with.
What are you open to when it comes to the plastic bag ban in Charleston County?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, I'll let you go first. I'll clean up on this one.
I think it's lousy that we have to legislate things like this. A lack of pride in our community, I think, leads to legislation like this. That being said, I did and will support it for two simple reasons. Number one is a consistency between municipalities. And Judge Rawl made a good point. The plastic bags, once we get our recycling center open, they do gum up the equipment.
Right.
So those are the only two reasons I would support it. Otherwise, I think it's lousy.
And we're in agreement on that. And I also come from, I've been recycling my whole life, and I appreciate the environmental aspect of this. I think what our communities have done has been really innovative in bringing this, to the forefront, all of the Sea Islands that have been a part of it. And so I am in support of removing these, bags that last forever. I mean, they don't decompose, the type that we're talking about. And so if we can find an alternative that works both for the business community and for constituents and residents, I think that's the right thing to do.
I know I first interviewed you for Quintin School Sus when you were running, probably when I first started working at Qology, I would say 4 years ago. What is the biggest difference between then and now as far as you being a county council member?
I think expectations, when you first get elected, and Jenny's is going through this now, you want to try to be as open and as accessible as possible, and I try to still do that. But you've got to realize that you've got a job, you've got family. Those are priorities, and this job can overwhelm you if you let it. So you have to be really disciplined about when you do your county council time. So I do mine first thing in the morning, at lunch, the rare 10 o'clock, but then after work. So I really have to stay disciplined about when I attack my county responsibilities. That's been the biggest thing.
Who is Jenny Honeycutt now that you're a county council member?
I'm all those things I was, except now I'm also a county council member.
Yes.
So wife and mom comes first,
Yes.
as Brantley said, family, and I'm an attorney
Yeah.
still, so I have to keep a day job.
Still?
No, not teaching at the College of Charleston this time.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that experience, but I had a little give and take in there. But I'm right with Brantley. I'm learning that balance, trying to be responsive. There's a lot of issues right now in my district, particularly as it relates to road improvements, intersection improvements. And I know you're aware that I had a constituent who passed away when struck by a pedestrian. And so that really hit me. I hadn't really considered the human cost. And in my business, I'm not dealing with life and death. And so that really did strike a chord with me. And right now I have another intersection improvement project that's up for Tuesday night. And I am absolutely unwilling to let an F intersection stay that way without doing something, because I would feel personally responsible if there were another tragic accident there.
Jenny, it's funny you mentioned, not funny, but just a mention of your intersection, because that was one of the suggestions on the half-cent sales tax. Right. We hear a lot of, y'all are baiting and switching and that sort of thing. I can tell you, if Jenny and I were on council at the time, 526 would have been there and it would have passed with flying colors. But I mentioned that intersection because our opponents will say, well, you're going to forsake all these projects. Highway 41 is underway, 17 in Maine is underway, Savannah Highway Capacity is underway, James Island Intersection improvements are underway. I said 41, didn't I? Highway. So
17 overpass.
I mean, what have we not started? It's just a lot more hysterics, if you ask me.
Can I talk more about the improvements of Highway 41? What can we expect next in Charleston County?
To be honest with you, I don't know. That's sort of Herb and Ellie.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times we will we'll try to let the council persons of that area sort of drive, and the town of Mount Pleasant is working with that as well. They are eliminating some plans that go over there. I mean, certainly that historic African American community that's a touchy issue. We've got to figure out how to work through. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, Brantley Moody and Jenny Honeycutt, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Always a pleasure.
Likewise.